Are you or a loved one considering a nursing home? What if I told you there are shocking facts you must know before making that decision? Imagine this. You think you're making the right choice for comfort and care, but the reality can be much different. Today, an 80-year-old woman is here to share her experience and the truths no one warns you about. When I first walked into that nursing home, I thought I was just going to be taken care of in my golden years. But what followed shocked me and made me question everything. I never imagined the loneliness, the loss of control, or the hidden costs I'd face. These are the lessons I've learned the hard way, and today I'm here to make sure you don't have to go through the same thing. Stay tuned to hear the shocking realities of nursing home life that you need to know before making any decisions for yourself or your loved ones. 1. Lack of personal control over your day. When I first arrived at the nursing home, I thought I'd still have some say in how I spent my day. After all, I was used to doing things on my own terms for so many years. But let me tell you, I quickly learned that wasn't the case. The staff set the schedule. You don't get to choose when you wake up, what you eat, or even when you get your daily bath. It's all decided for you, and you quickly realize how much of your independence slips away. One of the hardest things I faced was the lack of control over something as simple as waking up. At home, I would wake up when I was ready, have a cup of coffee, and take my time. But in the nursing home, you're woken up early, whether you're ready or not. There's no time to adjust to the rhythm of your own body. The staff comes in and says, "It's time to get up," and before you know it, the day has already started. It feels like your own body clock doesn't matter anymore, and the meals, oh the meals, you don't get to choose when or what you want to eat. Breakfast is served at the same time for everyone, and if you're not hungry, too bad. You get what they give you. I remember the first time they gave me a breakfast that I couldn't stomach. I was hungry, but not for oatmeal and a side of fruit that I just couldn't bring myself to eat. I asked if I could have something else, but the staff just told me it wasn't an option. You can't simply ask for what you want when you're part of the system. They have their rules, and they're not interested in personal preferences. It was frustrating, to say the least. I went from having complete control over my life to feeling like I was just another person in the line of routine. I'd spent my whole life making choices, big and small, and suddenly I felt helpless. It was a stark reminder of how quickly the simple joys of autonomy can slip away as you get older, and how much you take for granted when you're still in charge of your own day. 2. The emotional toll of being away from family. One of the most difficult things I didn't expect when I moved into the nursing home was how emotionally draining it would be to be away from my family. You don't realize just how much you rely on those daily visits, the sound of familiar voices, or even a simple hug, until they're gone. The first few days were hard, but over time it became even harder. I felt like I was fading into the background of a place where no one really knew me, not in the way my children or grandchildren did. I remember one evening when it really hit me. I was sitting in the common room surrounded by people, but I felt completely alone. The staff was busy coming in and out, but no one sat with me. I had this overwhelming wave of sadness wash over me. I realized that even though I was surrounded by others in similar situations, no one knew me the way my family did. No one knew the stories I'd told them over the years, or the things that made me laugh. I longed for the sound of my daughter's voice, or the warmth of my grandchildren's laughter, but they weren't there. They were busy with their own lives, and I couldn't help but feel abandoned. It's a different kind of loneliness when you're not just physically alone, but emotionally isolated as well. I'll never forget the moment when my son came to visit after not seeing me for a week. He sat next to me, and I could tell he was doing his best to comfort me. But as we talked, I could see how much distance had grown between us. It wasn't his fault, but the emotional toll of being apart for so long had created this invisible barrier. It was heartbreaking, really. The longer I stayed, the more I felt like I was losing touch with the people who meant the most to me, and it left me feeling hollow inside. You don't realize how much a simple, "How are you doing, Mom?" can mean until it's been days, sometimes weeks, since anyone has asked you. It's easy to forget that we, as elderly people, need that emotional connection just as much as we need physical care. And when that connection starts to slip away, it takes a bigger toll than just the pain of missing loved ones. It starts to affect your mental health too. 3. Quality of care may not meet your expectations. When you hear the term nursing home, you picture a place where people are cared for around the clock, right? You assume that the staff is well trained and dedicated to providing the best possible care for you or your loved one. That's what I thought too before I moved in. But I quickly realized that not all nursing homes live up to the promises they make. The quality of care can vary drastically, and I was one of the many who found out the hard way. I remember my first week there. I had trouble with my mobility. I needed help getting out of bed, and I was told that a staff member would assist me promptly whenever I rang the bell. So I rang the bell, and I waited. I waited for what felt like an eternity, and when someone finally arrived, it wasn't the person I'd expected. They were rushing, barely taking the time to ensure I was comfortable or safe. I thought, this isn't the level of care I was promised. It was a shocking wake-up call. I realized that in some places, the staff is overwhelmed, stretched too thin, and simply doesn't have the time to give you the attention you need. One afternoon, I witnessed another example of care that really shook me. A woman who I knew had a history of heart problems was left unattended for hours, even though she had requested help several times. When I asked one of the nurses about it, they said, "She's fine, she'll be all right." That didn't sit right with me. What if she wasn't fine? I knew that neglect, even the smallest kind, could make a huge difference in someone's health. But there seemed to be this lack of urgency, this sense of, "It'll be okay," even when it clearly wasn't. In those moments, I realized that while some nursing homes do their best to provide quality care, others are severely underfunded or simply don't have the resources. You can't always count on the level of attention that you expect, and that can have serious consequences, especially when it comes to your health. It's something no one warns you about before you make the decision to move in. 4. The hidden financial burden. When I made the decision to enter the nursing home, I thought I had a good understanding of the costs involved. I assumed that the basic fee covered most of my needs, like meals and care. But let me tell you, nothing could have prepared me for the hidden financial burden that would follow. It wasn't until I was already settled in that I realized how quickly those costs would add up and how much they'd strain my finances. For starters, there were all these additional fees that weren't included in the initial contract. The first surprise came when I was charged for things I thought would be covered, like physical therapy sessions. It turned out that these weren't part of my regular care package. When I asked about it, they said, "Oh, that's an extra cost." I was shocked. If you need physical therapy to stay mobile, how could that be an extra charge? That's just one example, but there were more, like charges for special dietary meals, extra personal items like toiletries, and even a charge for using the phone in my room. Little by little, these costs added up, and I realized that what I thought would be affordable was quickly becoming a financial burden. The real kicker came when I needed more specialized care. I had to pay extra for additional assistance, and that wasn't something I had accounted for. The stress of it all was overwhelming. My children helped me out as much as they could, but even they were caught off guard by how expensive it all was. I'd never expected to spend my savings so quickly. The worst part, The nursing home made it seem like all these charges were standard, but they didn't make it clear up front. By the time I was aware of the full scope of costs, it was too late to back out. In the end, I realized that the financial strain of living in a nursing home, it wasn't just about the bills, it was about the stress it caused, not only to me, but also to my family. Watching them worry about how to pay for my care was heartbreaking. It made me wish someone had warned me about all the hidden costs before I made the decision to move in. 5. Limited social interaction and activities. Before moving into the nursing home, I envisioned a place where there would be plenty of activities to keep me busy and engaged. I imagined meeting new friends, joining book clubs, or maybe even learning something new like painting or knitting. But the reality was much different. The truth is, there just aren't enough activities to keep you busy or engaged, and the opportunities for socializing are limited. The first few weeks were the hardest. I spent most of my time in my room, watching TV or staring out the window, wondering if anyone else was feeling as lonely as I was. I had hoped that there would be social events where I could meet people and form new friendships, but that just didn't happen. The few activities they did offer, like bingo or card games, were often poorly attended, and they weren't much of an escape from the feeling of isolation. If you didn't make an effort to participate, you were left to yourself, and even if you did, there were few opportunities to actually connect with anyone on a deeper level. I remember one day I decided to go to the weekly bingo game. I was excited because it was a chance to interact with others, and I figured it would be a good way to meet people. But when I arrived, there were only 3 other people there. They didn't seem too interested in talking or getting to know me. It was just a quiet, almost mechanical event. I sat there, playing the game, but felt more alone than I did in my room. After that, I realized that it wasn't just the lack of activities that bothered me. It was the absence of real, meaningful connections. People were too caught up in their own routines, and socializing wasn't encouraged in a way that made you feel like you were part of something. As the days passed, I started to feel like a ghost in my own life. I would see families visiting their loved ones, laughing and sharing stories, while I was left on the sidelines. I found myself longing for the days when I could have a conversation with someone who wasn't in a hurry or distracted by their own busy lives. It made me realize just how important social interaction is to our well-being. It's not just about filling the hours, it's about feeling seen, heard, and connected to others. In the nursing home, that's something you have to fight for, and sometimes it feels like a battle you can't win. 6. The potential for health complications. One of the things that no one really prepares you for when moving into a nursing home is the increased risk of health complications. You might think you're entering a place where you'll be safe and well cared for, but in reality, nursing homes can sometimes be breeding grounds for infections, illnesses, and even neglect. I learned that the hard way, and let me tell you, it was a terrifying wake-up call. I'll never forget the day when a fellow resident, a sweet woman named Mary, came down with what seemed like a simple cold. But within days, she was struggling to breathe, and no one seemed to notice. I kept asking the staff to check on her, but they were so overwhelmed with other responsibilities that Mary's condition went unnoticed for hours. By the time they took her to the hospital, it was too late. She had developed a severe lung infection, and sadly, she didn't make it. I was horrified. I couldn't shake the thought that if she had been given proper attention sooner, she might still be here. It was an eye-opener for me, just how easily things can slip through the cracks when the staff is too busy or not properly trained. And it wasn't just Mary. I witnessed several other incidents where residents were left unattended for too long, or their health issues weren't addressed in a timely manner. One time I developed a small cut on my foot, something minor, I thought. But because of my age, it became infected quickly. I asked for help to clean and dress it, but it took nearly a day for a nurse to come. By then, the infection had spread, and I had to go on antibiotics. The whole situation was scary, something as simple as a cut turning into a major health scare because of delayed care. It really opened my eyes to the risks of being in a nursing home, where sometimes the staff just doesn't have the time, resources, or training to properly monitor and address every resident's needs. And that's not something they warn you about before you sign the papers. You never think that just being in a place designed to care for you could lead to more health problems. But the truth is, health complications are a real risk, and they're not always easy to avoid. Conclusion. Well, there you have it. Some of the harsh realities of nursing home life that no one warns you about. I hope this video helped you see things from a different perspective, whether for yourself or a loved one. Remember, it's so important to do your research and understand all the aspects before making such a big decision. If you found this information helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts or experiences you'd like to share, leave a comment down below. Did you relate to any of this? Or do you have other insights about nursing homes? I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and remember, always make the best choices for your future and well-being. Thanks for watching. Comment 9 if you think this video was eye-opening, or 0 if you think more people need to hear this before deciding on a nursing home. See you next time.